Good evening, Doug, Kurt, members of faculty, staff, parents, friends, guests, and graduates. I'm honored to speak at your commencement from a school that represented a major turning point in my career and was instrumental in helping me to shape the filmmaker that I've become. I'd like to start with an acknowledgement. This has been a tough few years for all of us. Most days, this so-called new normal feels like anything but that. So the graduates in this room have extra reason to be proud and to celebrate tonight. You not only made it through a pandemic, you made it through film school during a pandemic. And for everybody else in the room, I have no doubt that you made it through some challenges of your own in this past year. So before we go any further, I want everyone to turn to the person next to you, look them in the eye, shake their hand, and say, "Congratulations, you made it." I'm going to tell you a few stories tonight about the early stages of my journey, where most of you are right now, and some of the lessons that I learned along the way. My hope is that they give you some perspective on the moment that you're in, inspire you to actualize the potential inside of you, and reach for the greatness you've been trained to achieve. My curiosity about filmmaking started in 2004 when I was a DJ living in Berlin, Germany. I lived there for 3 years at the tail end of my 10-year DJ career, playing in clubs and shows all over Europe. I was homesick a lot, and one of the ways I remedied that was to watch American movies. This was in the age of DVDs, and there were bonus features on the discs, mostly about the making of the film. There was the director's commentary, the actor's commentary, the making of behind the scenes. And those became some of my favorite pieces of content to watch, sometimes even more than the movie itself. I became fascinated with how movies were made. And I started to see my own life like a movie that I was directing and starring in, and in my mind, I was narrating the commentary. So when I decided to hang up my headphones and move back to Detroit, I set my sights on documentary filmmaking as the next endeavor in my creative evolution. I wanted to get started right away, so I enrolled at a night course that a local community organization was offering. And I learned just enough to be dangerous. Which brings me to my favorite quote from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and the first guiding principle or lesson that I'd like to leave with you tonight. Quote, "Take the first step in faith. You don't have to see the whole staircase. Just take the first step," unquote. So how do you know what first step to take? It's often found in your curiosity. At that time, I was particularly curious about what we affectionately called the ruins of Detroit. I found out that there was going to be a press conference for the grand opening of the Westin Book Cadillac Hotel, a former ruin called the Book Building that had been restored and partially renovated back to its original glory. I decided to go to the press conference, not with any particular objective in mind, but because I was curious. And this is lesson number 2. Curiosity is an invitation to a party in your honor. Show up for it. Since you never know whose path you might cross, I figured I should bring some business cards. The thing was, freshly into my newly minted career, I didn't have any business cards. So I took some of those graphic note cards, the kinds that are blank on the inside and they have some pattern printed on the outside, and I ran them through my inkjet printer at home. Paige Erlich, documentary filmmaker, phone number, email. And I cut them with the scissors, not even in the size and shape of a traditional business card because I didn't think I could pull it off. So instead I decided to make a statement and cut them into odd shapes, almost as if to declare, I am creative, resourceful, and bold. After the press conference, a man walked up to me and introduced himself as John Furchill. He asked me what I did, and I said proudly, "I'm a documentary filmmaker," and I handed him a card. And he said, "Oh, I've been looking for someone like you." He was the owner of the hotel, and he'd been wanting to make a documentary about his life. So he asked, "How many of these have you done?" And I put a smile on my face from ear to ear, and I said, "You'll be the first." And he was. John gave me my first break as a documentary filmmaker and taught me a valuable lesson that day that I want to pass on to you now. Lesson number 3. Not only do you not have to know everything to start, but you don't have to pretend to know everything. In fact, pretending to know everything can rob you of that precious opportunity to learn and grow, and that is the road to greatness. For the next 3 years or so, I continued to develop my craft, but without any formal education or teachers in my life, I generally went about things the hard way and stumbled a lot without understanding why. I was working a variety of freelance gigs to pay the bills, barely making ends meet, and with a house that was falling into disrepair, I eventually landed myself in $12,000 of debt. And I finally reached a crossroad where I realized that if I was going to be great at this and be paid commensurately, I needed skills and I needed guidance, and I found MPI. It was perfect, except for one thing. I couldn't afford it. But I was determined to do more than just get by. I was determined to be great. So I found some credit cards with 0 interest rate introductory offers for 1 year. Now, this is not financial advice, and I do not recommend that you do this, but yes, I took on more debt to pursue my passion. And I made myself a deal that I would find a way to pay them off before the interest kicked in. Lesson number 4, commit to your greatness and don't let anything stop you. I continued to do freelance gigs while at MPI, and one of my clients was an event production company that was planning a spectacular holiday event for one of their clients, like $1 million event. The costumed actors and set design were going to be epic and surreal, including trapeze artists hanging from the ceiling, a mermaid in a fountain, and human buffet stations. I knew that if I could capture this event in the style that I was envisioning, that I would have a beautiful piece for my portfolio that I could then use to go out and get new clients. So I approached the event company and asked them if they would let me make it for free, and then I would give them the video to use for their own marketing purposes. They agreed. But at that point, I wasn't capable of the level of production that was going to be required to execute on my vision. So I tapped into my resources. Which brings me to lesson number 5, and one that you're surely not hearing from me for the first time tonight. You're graduating tonight not only with an education, but with an invaluable asset, this community. Many of the people who are going to make a difference in your career are either in this room or you're going to meet through the connections you have with people in this room. We just had a guest lecturer in my cinematography class named Rob Frenette, an MPI grad. And I love the way that he and his team at Twopenny, also MPI grads, were telling visual stories. So I approached Rob and I asked him if I could hire him to shoot this event with me and show me the ropes. And he agreed. And the resulting film exceeded my expectations. And it wouldn't be the only time an MPI connection elevated the quality of my work and enabled me to reach higher levels of greatness. My go-to DP and creative partner for the last 8 years, Eric Rubner, is a former instructor of Production Lab at MPI. With Eric's partnership, I've been able to achieve a level of artistry that has given me a seat at better tables, where there's better work, better people, and better money. So that was the first time that the event company had ever seen their work on video. They'd only done photographs before. And they were so in love with it that then and there, they commissioned 6 more videos from me that year, paid for my film school. That was my next big break, and what I now call my going pro moment. And it demonstrated another theme you may be starting to notice here. Lesson number 6, listen for the call and answer it when it rings. Now, this isn't to say that you can play video games and eat sandwiches all day waiting for the call to come, unless, of course, you aspire to be a professional video game player. Otherwise, It's a distraction and a way for you to avoid doing the sometimes uncomfortable work of finding your way, of taking that first step. Notice I said uncomfortable work and not hard work, because it's often not the hard thing you need to do. It's just the thing you haven't done before, that good old getting out of your comfort zone. You could think of a million things that could go wrong, how it might not work out, or how nothing might come of it. But you could also think of a million ways that it could go right. Even better, you could approach it with a sense of curiosity and a willingness to be surprised, to embrace the adventure of your life and find out what could be in store for you. Going forward, one project led to the next, all by word of mouth. I brought the invaluable skills I learned at MPI and the trademark style that it supported me in developing to a market that was hungry for them. I built relationships, took impeccable care of my clients, and obsessed over their success. I poured my commitment and love for storytelling into their projects, turning them into raving fans that wanted to continue working with me and refer me to others. And to this day, that's my ethos of operation. Today, as Doug said, I've personally produced, directed, and edited over 350 films and videos. Last year, my work took me into a jailhouse for a poetry workshop, walking in a county parade, the streets lined with thousands of people, and exploring the depths of my consciousness with the youngest Zen master in over 800 years. I remember being in the redwoods of Northern California, the orange late afternoon summer sunlight streaming through the trees, while Eric, the DP I mentioned, was setting up a drone to fly through the trees for a shot. I had one of those moments of catching myself in the experience of the moment and saying to myself, this is my job. I'm getting paid to be here and do this. And I wish that moment for all of you. So listen and answer your call when you hear it. That call could come in the form of curiosity, the way I was called to that press conference. It could be an inner knowing, the way I was called to MPI, and determination to change my future. Or it could be in the form of inspiration, the way I was called to make that event highlight video. If you're being called to something, you're being called for a reason. And you won't necessarily know why it comes, but you have to get on that first step for it to be revealed to you and for the next step to appear. Documentary films was my thing, and when I got started, there was no Netflix, Amazon, or Hulu. But I was onto something that was going to explode in popularity over the next 10 years and spawn legions of benefactors, also known as clients. For you, maybe you geek out on sound design or animation. Or maybe you have to make yourself go to bed at 3 in the morning because you've gone down some rabbit hole online again. Or maybe you're not obsessed with anything in particular, but you have an itch to explore something. Find that thing you're passionate about and keep at it, but stay curious because that next step is always ahead of you. Things will change, technology will change, the market will change, the culture will change, and you will change. You're going to grow and evolve, and new calls will come. As we speak, I'm working on a pivot in my own business from brand films to family legacy films. I'm answering a new call once again. To the graduating class of MPI, if you listen, you will hear your call. And if you answer, you'll find your way to greatness. And know this, people are going to want to hire you. You're coming into this industry at a time of unprecedented demand and opportunity to make a living as filmmakers, creatives, and creators. And it's on a trajectory that is exponentially expanding. You've just completed one part of your journey, a significant part. And you're now on a path that holds promise to fulfill and reward you for expressing your unique talents, gifts, and skills. Be curious about how it's going to unfold for you. Answer the call when you hear it and show up. You don't have to see the whole staircase. Just take the first step. Congratulations, class of 2023. Thank you.